I am Anthony F. Elmore, President and founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association. We are not only the Black Buddhist force in America, but we are the Black Buddhist force in the world. And today we bring you another exciting Black Buddhist lecture. Now, our lecture today is titled The Death of Queen Elizabeth and the Buddhist View of Death and Dying. You see, the biggest story worldwide has been the death of Queen Elizabeth, the royal family, and the British monarchy. Now, the monarchy, as the head of state, the monarch undertakes constitutional and representative duties which have developed over 1,000 years of history. In addition to these state duties, the monarch has a less formal role as head of state. You see, the sovereign acts as a focus for the national identity, unity, and pride, gives a sense of stability and continuity, officially recognizes success and excellence, and supports the idea of voluntary service. Now, what the Queen Death does, the Queen Death gives us proud Black Buddhists an opportunity to show you the teachings of Buddhism outside the realm of Asian culture and history. See, when you think about Buddhism, all you think about is some Asian on a mountain meditating, and very rarely do you get to hear the Black Buddhist voice about Buddhism. See, we take Buddhism outside the realm of Asians, and we teach a Buddhism, or teach the Buddhist teachings, that gives us an understanding of Buddhism, because Buddhism is actually our everyday life and living. Now, what is exciting about us proud Black Buddhists is to know and to understand that the Buddha, Shakyamuni, comes from a Black royal family, and some of our oldest Black history, our Black Buddhist heritage in the life of Shakyamuni Buddha, who was born as a prince. However, he gave up his life as a prince to answer the problems of life and living. Now, please understand that we practice only the Lotus Sutra, which is the highest of the Buddhist teachings, whereas the Lotus Sutra teaches us that the Buddha explains that his life did not really just start in India as a prince, but he lived hundreds of thousands of billions of years by practicing the Dharma, or he practiced the Lotus Sutra. And so we today are here to tell you more about the Lotus Sutra via explaining the life and death of Queen Elizabeth, and to tell you the Buddhist view of life and death. Now, in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha explains again that he lives hundreds of billions of years ago. Now, you see, if you could just understand the title of the Lotus Sutra, you would understand everything about Buddhism, because the Buddha made it very simple, in that what the Buddha Shakyamuni did, the Buddha intoned the words Yo Ho Renge Kyo. Now, Yo Ho Renge Kyo is the title of the Lotus Sutra. Now, the word Myo means correct. Now, it is Nichiren who added the word Namu. You see, Namu means to awaken. You see, the word Myo means correct. The word Ho means low. The word Ren means cause, and the word gay means effect, and the word kyo means teaching. So, in essence, Nichiren Buddhism is a teaching whereas we awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teachings. So, to tell you about the life of Queen Elizabeth, we explain it via the words Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, or the correct law, or to awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teachings. Now, whether you know it or not, you see, the cells in our body go through a process called Jo, Ju, A, and Ku. On all the functions of the universe, everything goes through birth, growth, maturity, and death. This is a function of how the universe functions, or how life and death function. See, life is not just birth, but life manifests itself through the realm of birth and death. See, birth and death, or death and birth, all comes together. You see, this is what the teachings of Buddhism teaches us. You see, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I will be denounced for saying it. However, one of the greatest things that happened to black people and people of color was World War I and World War II. You see, there's a saying that the sun never sets on the British Empire. You see, the saying the empire of which the sun never sets has been used to explain the vastness of the British Empire. You see, between the 18th and 20th century, the British Empire acquired more territories, making it the largest empire in history. The empire had established in Africa, Asia, Europe, America, and numerous islands across the globe. Historians estimated that roughly 25% of the Earth's landmass was controlled by the British. The region was so extensive that at one time there was daylight in one of the territories. That's why they said the British Empire was a place where the sun never set. You see, Queen Elizabeth was born into a royal family that controlled 25% of the Earth's landmass. I'm afraid to imagine where would us black people be if Germany in World War II hadn't attacked Britain. What if Britain didn't get into World War I and World War II? Where would we black people or people of color be? You see, World War II weakened Britain so bad that she could no longer hold on to her colonies. And like in 1947, I think it was in India, where they fought to fight the British Empire. And from there on, from 1947, with the British having to give up India, there were protest movements all over the world where people fought their freedom against colonialism and the British Empire. You see, there was a time known as the Berlin Conference, whereas white Europeans sought to discuss the partitioning of Africa, establishing rules to amicably divide resources among Western countries at the expense of African people. Of these 14 nations, the British Conference, France, Germany, Great Britain, and Portugal were the major players. It was World War I and World War II that weakened Britain so immensely that it could not maintain their colonies. And the fall of the British Empire happened during the reign of the life of Queen Elizabeth. You see, it is only the Lotus Sutra that explains this phenomena. You see, the Lotus Sutra explains that all phenomena via the concept of a theory called Nichiren Sanzen. You see? Now, literally, Nichiren Sanzen can be translated as moment of existence in 3,000 aspects. You see, each moment of existence of all living beings, Nichiren, is endowed with all 3,000 realms of phenomena. Sanzen. Nichiren means a moment of life. Ichi means one and signifies that one ultimate truth or the middle way of the Dharma nature. You see, a single moment of existence encompasses all elements that form a common mortal's life, such as body and mind and cause and effect. You see, the term refers to all forms of existence. Sanzen indicates every single phenomenon in the entire universe. Now, it is difficult or almost impossible to grasp in 1 minute, but let me break this down via a smaller component. You see, the Lotus Sutra explains that all phenomena, or the law of cause and effect, manifests 10 aspects. The 10 aspects are: number 1, form; number 2, nature. Now, the form and the nature creates what is called an entity, which is number 3. Because there's an entity, number 4 happens, cause a power that leads to number 4, which is an influence, which leads to number 6, which is an internal cause. Now, in simple terms, there are causes that you can make that will lead to certain effects. You see, on one hand, for example, you take water. If you take water and you heat it to 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, it will change into steam. On the other hand, if you change the temperature of water below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, it changes into ice. That is an inherent cause, which is number 6. Now that we get to number 7, which is called relationship, we get to Queen Elizabeth. You see, another name for relationship is called karma. Karma is simply cause and effect. Now, we have a different relationship to Queen Elizabeth depending on your karma or your relationship with Queen Elizabeth. You see, please note that Queen Elizabeth's death was one of the most significant events to happen worldwide in the 21st century. Approximately 500 heads of state came to London or Britain to offer their respect to Queen Elizabeth. You see, this is significant or karmic that 500 heads of states or royals and foreign dignitaries would travel to Britain to pay their respects. Now, from the date of her death on September the 8th, 2022, to the burial, September 19, 2022, her story was the most dominant story via news in America. Now, let me tell you part of my karma regarding Queen Elizabeth. For almost 2 weeks, day in and day out, all I saw on the news was a story of her story of pomp and circumstances. You see, in regards to Buddhism, her story explains via the 10 aspects, that is, the nature, the form, the entity, the power, the influence, inherent cause, the relationship, the latent effect. That means things that will happen that has not happened. Then you get 9, the manifest effect, and all of this is consistent from beginning to the end. You see, for those of you who do not know about the teachings of the 13th century Black Japanese sage Nichiren Shonin, Nichiren taught his disciples via a compilation of letters that he wrote and they gathered these letters into a book form, and it's called the Gosho. Now, we who learn Nichiren Buddhism learn about Buddhism of Shakyamuni, Buddha, of Nichiren's teachings via the Gosho. The Gosho is like a Buddhist Bible. Now, this is what Nichiren writes about death in the Gosho. Now, the Gosho was titled The Importance of the Moment of Death, and it reads, quote, "The life of a human being is fleeting. The exhale breath never waits for the inhale one. Even dew before the wind is hardly sufficient metaphor. It is the way of the world that whether one is wise or foolish, old or young, one never knows what will happen from one moment to the next. Therefore, I should first of all learn about death and then about other things," unquote. You see, the Buddhism that we practice is not about some Asian on a mountain meditating. You see, another name for the Buddhism that we practice is called the science of life. See, Nichiren Buddhism teaches us that life manifests via the function of birth and death, or what we call Myoho Renge Kyo. You see, in regards to the death of Queen Elizabeth, her death and circumstances surrounding her life is probably, or perhaps, the largest display of pomp and circumstance in modern history. The Queen life represents more than just pomp and circumstances, but Queen Elizabeth's reign represents the ultimate age of Anglo-cultural superiority. We can say that Queen Elizabeth represents the essence of Anglo-culture. All of the pomp and circumstance was represented at her funeral. Now, let's begin to view the Queen's from the lens of the Lotus Sutra. See, the Lotus Sutra view phenomena from the law of cause and effect phenomena. Queen Elizabeth's relationship or karma represents various entities. You see, Queen Elizabeth represents the entity of the British monarchy. Queen Elizabeth represents the entity or the age of Anglo-cultural history. Now, when we talk about Anglo-cultural history, we are in essence talking about white culture or the white dominance in world culture. See, outside of the realm of cultural history, Queen Elizabeth was also a grandmother. Again, everything about Queen Elizabeth comes down to your relationship or karma to her. In essence, what is your cause and effect relationship to Queen Elizabeth? You see, in America, it was noted that Queen Elizabeth's funeral only garnered 11.4 million viewers. In contrast, 33.2 million people watched the funeral of Princess Diana in September 1997. You see, in May of 2018, it estimated that 1.9 billion people tuned in to watch Prince Harry in the Black Meghan Markle star-studded royal wedding at the iconic St. George Chapel. Now, just on Oprah Winfrey's show alone, the 2-hour Oprah and Meghan and Harry, a CBS primetime special, pulled a 2.6 ratings among adults 18 to 49, or 17.1 million viewers. You see, this lecture's titled The Death of Queen Elizabeth and the Buddhist view of death and dying. What is it that Buddhism teaches us? See, Buddhism teaches us about change, or Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. You see, we awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teachings. You see, Buddhism explains the greatest change via Queen Elizabeth is called Vaya. You see, the Vaya regarding Queen Elizabeth has changed. You see, following the death of King George VI, Princess Elizabeth Alexandra Mary ascended to the throne on February 6, 1952, at the age of 25. She was in Kenya when her father died. We know that Queen Elizabeth's death ignites sensitive debate over Africa's colonial past. You see, Buddhism explains cause and effect relationship. It depends on your karma and relationship as to how you may or may not react to the death of Queen Elizabeth. You see, many young Africans and those who remember British colonial past could care less about Queen Elizabeth and the colonial rule. You see, in regards to the death of Queen Elizabeth, let me share with you the Buddhist view regarding the death of Queen Elizabeth. You see, I want you to vision in your mind the future of the world. I want you to look at a show like Star Trek or Star Wars, where we move into the future, where we move into where people have overcome racial boundaries and ethnic and cultural boundaries, where we explore in other realms of the universe, other cultures, every life. You see, it doesn't matter to the future whether we dealt with the British monarchy or Queen Elizabeth. She will be insignificant, because in the future, what's important to the world is the law of cause and effect, and what differences that you make in life and the cause and effect. So imagine in a modern technological society, in the computer world, we're not going to be looking at the British monarchy. Little kids going to get a computer. We're going to communicate with people all over the world. The world is different. We will look back at the monarchy at a time when people were less evolved. You see, in the Ghost Show, now it's called The Heritage of the Ultimate Life, and it reads, quote, "Yo represent death and whole life. Living beings pass through the two phases of life and death, are the entities of the 10 worlds or the entities of Myoho Renge Kyo." It reads further. Tentai says that one should understand that living beings and their environments and all the cause and effects at work within them are all the law of Renge, the Lotus. Here, living beings in their environment means the phenomena of life and death. Thus, it is clear that where life and death exist, cause and effect, or the law of the Lotus, is at work. You see, Buddhism, or chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, is dealing with the law of life and death, or the function of life and death. You see, we chant Namu, or Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is to awaken to the correct law, cause, and effect teaching. You see, in regards to understanding the death and dying, Buddhism, again, the Ghost Show, The Heritage of the Ultimate Law for Life and Death, explains that no matter who you are, all phenomena pass through the phase of life and death. Now, let me take you back to the 10 aspects. Form represents a part of phenomena. That's like birth, a form. But 2, nature represents a character. Number 3, form and nature represents an entity. 4, entity represents a power. A power represents an influence. Influence represents an inherent cause. For example, because of Queen Elizabeth, it is a queen that has an inherent cause that comes with that. Now, the inherent cause represents a relationship. The relationship manifests a manifest effect, Queen Elizabeth. Now, the manifest effect represents a latent effect. And that means things about Queen Elizabeth is going to happen that's not even happened yet, because that is a latent effect. Now, which is going to eventually become a manifest effect. Now, the manifest effect represents, it comes to the latent effect, and from that, there's a consistency of beginning to end, where all these 10 aspects of the law of cause and effect come together. You see, there is more that I can tell you. There's a teaching called the 10 worlds, which is hell, hunger, animality, anger, humanity. That's the world of rapture. There's learning, self-realization, and there's bodhisattva, being Christ-like, and there's a world of Buddhahood. You got 10 worlds, and to each world, which is 100 worlds, times the 10 aspects, is 3,000 worlds, times the 3 realms. You see, that is the teachings of Nichiren science, and it's quite complicated, but at least it tells you about the life and death of Queen Elizabeth. Now, anyway, I think we've given you some idea of the life and death of Queen Elizabeth. Anyway, I am Anthony F. Elmore, President and Founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association, bringing you another Black Buddhist lecture titled The Death of Queen Elizabeth and the Buddhist View of Death in Dying.